thank you for joining us today. Today we are going to be talking about moringa. This has also been called the drumstick tree, the horseradish tree, tree of life. It is an amazing tree, very easy to grow, not quite as easy to propagate. You mostly have to grow them from seeds. Every part of this tree is edible, from the roots all the way to the leaves, the seed pods, the whole shebang. And it's used to combat malnutrition. That's how valuable nutritionally the leaves are. One thing to remember when you're gardening, homesteading, things like that, that just because it's edible does not mean it's nutritious. There's probably a lot of things in our diets that are edible yet not nutritious. Cheetos, right? You can eat them all day. You'll probably live, but not so comfortably, right? So moringa is used to combat malnutrition. It is very, very healthy for you. The seed pods, let me see if I can pop one of these off. The seed pods, you can pull the seeds out and cook them and eat them like peas. You can also use the seed pods to filter water, which we have not done and will not do because I don't have a legitimate way to test how good the water is before and after. So while it may work, couldn't prove it. So really, really useful tree, and harvesting it is extremely simple. You pretty much just grab a little branch and pop it off at the node. You can eat them raw. Tastes like a leaf. You can cook them. What we do is we dry them and then we powder them and we add them to whatever we're cooking, right? So in the final stages of cooking anything, whether it's spaghetti or scrambled eggs, we'll just throw in some powder and mix it in. Very, very easy to do, okay? This tree is not your average looking moringa tree. It's had a very traumatic life. When it was a small tree, we had a deer rub against it and break it off. We thought it was gonna die. And instead it grew back, and instead of growing back really tall and leggy like most of our other moringa trees, this one grew back and spread everywhere. So it's fantastic because we can reach more of the leaves. One of the complaints about moringa that I've heard is because it does grow tall and skinny and leggy, all of your leaves are so high up, it gets very hard to harvest them. Whereas our little deer abused tree has made it very, very easy to harvest, yet very hard to mow around. So that is the story of our moringa tree, and I will catch you up in the kitchen as we're rinsing and dehydrating these leaves. We're back in our Homestead for Life kitchen, and we are going to process the moringa that we picked this morning. I've already rinsed it off. You can see that it already, any greens picked look a little sad after they're off their stems for a little while. But we are going to dehydrate it, so it is going to look very sad, very soon. So the first step is laying it all out on our dehydrator sheets. I leave the primary stems that the leaves are attached to on. I take off the big one. But I leave it on because when it dehydrates, they shrivel up and they're going to kind of blow all around the dehydrator and they're going to make a mess. So this keeps it together. And then what I do when the dehydrator is done is I just scrape them off the stems. And they scrape off very easily. So some things to know about moringa as I'm deboning all this is, for one, it is a superfood. There are a ton of nutritional benefits to it. I was able to validate a lot of the online claims on healthline.com, which I feel like is a pretty legit website. Hope so, but if it's not, we'll blame them if you take anything I say too seriously. So it is extremely high in a lot of vitamins and in protein. So 1 cup of leaves gives you 2 grams of protein, 9% of your daily recommended value of vitamin A, 12% of your vitamin C, 11% of your iron, 8% of your magnesium, and 19% of B6, 11% of B2. You've got a lot of good nutritional value packed into these things. Let's see, they also are reported, again, did I mention I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor? Let me restate that, not a scientist and a doctor, so please talk to your doctor about anything if you're worried about it or if there's any potential reactions, because everybody's different and everyone's body needs different things sometimes. But in general, moringa is purported to help with weight loss. It helps stop the, it reduces fat formation and enhances fat breakdown. So that sounds awesome. I've actually seen lately that they make a moringa tea. I've seen it at the grocery store. I think I just noticed it maybe a couple months ago for the first time, which kind of made me smile because I've known about this tree for years now. So it's cool to see the world catching up on the health benefits. Let's see, what else does it have for us? Purportedly, again, anti-ulcer, antioxidant, anti-hypertension, analgesic. It's good. It has protective effects on your heart, liver, lungs, kidneys, all kinds of stuff, right? There's a lot of good stuff going on with moringa. Let's see, it is supposed to reduce blood sugar, reduce inflammation, lower your cholesterol. Let's see. 2 trays done, guys. 2 trays in. 3 more to go. Let's see. Supposedly, it tastes a bit like matcha, which I've never had, so I can't tell you. I can tell you that we cook it in fairly small quantities of the powder. We just add it to whatever we're cooking, and usually whatever we add it to overwhelms the taste. So it doesn't have a strong taste. Everything we've cooked it with has been able to overpower it. I'm not sure if matcha tastes good or bad, but whatever I'm cooking, it's not with the intent for it to taste like moringa typically. So to me, it just tastes like a leaf. Sort of indifferent about that myself. That's not a real great perk for me personally, but some people really like it. Let's see. As a powder, it dissolves easily. So if you get it powdered or you powder it yourself, it's great for adding to shakes. What else? The oil, well, oil can be crushed from the seed pods, or crushed from the seeds themselves, which you can use in cooking, or it's also really great for your skin and hair because it has antibacterial properties. So you can use the oil that way, or you can make a paste of the powder. Again, for those antibacterial properties, it's supposed to reduce inflammation in your scalp as well. So if you've got a real dry scalp and you're having issues there, I guess you can throw green powder in your hair. Whatever. Maybe add it to your shampoo. Throw it in there. Obviously, I have not tried that one. These are just benefits of it that I found out today, besides the ones I already knew, which was mostly just the nutritional value, is what I knew previously. So we have been growing it and eating it just for the nutritional value. Turns out we could have been using it for a heck of a lot more. Who knew? I also learned a recipe for the seed pods. If you harvest your seed pods while they're young, while they're still green, you can boil them, roast them, whatever, cook them like green beans. They've got a green beany texture, but the taste of the seeds is supposed to be like asparagus. Haven't eaten the seeds before, so that's kind of exciting. Oh, and I have a whole extra tray. we're gonna spread out some of the other ones here. I've got a little overloaded. What else can I tell you about moringa? You can buy it if you don't want to go through all this adventure. You can buy it online. Some people already throw it in capsules for you. You can buy the powder. You can also usually buy it at different health food stores. But if you wanted to grow it, it grows best from seeds in my experience. Some magical internet people were able to grow it well from cuttings. That has not been my experience, but I might just suck at that. It is a very drought resistant tree. It does still want to get watered here and there, but you know, if it doesn't, it should be fine. It likes sandy soil, but it's got a very deep taproot. It grows pretty fast. You're looking at about 9 feet just in its first year. It likes full sun and is going to grow well in zones 9 through 10. It's originally been found in India, Pakistan, that area, so it's fine in those hot, dry climates. Back to processing our moringa. So the way we're going to process it today is in my dehydrator. This dehydrator lets you adjust the temperature and set in advance the amount of time. So we are going to turn this on for 4 hours, and we are going to set the temperature at 110 degrees, maybe 113 degrees. Right. Which is pretty standard for herbs. The alternative method for drying moringa, which we did before I got this fantastic dehydrator on Black Friday last year, is we laid them out in trays that had holes everywhere. We laid them all out and we stacked the trays on top of each other and let them dry that way. So we'll show you some pictures of that from our past moringa drying. And it took about 5 days for it to dry at room temperature in the house, right? So we checked them on the first day and they were starting to get a little dry. The second day they were getting there, and then on day 5 they looked really good. And then we threw them in our coffee grinder and powdered them up and good to go. So since then, got a little spattered by oil being next to the stove, but we've been just adding in a teaspoon here and there. I did see online, so again, not entirely sure, but it is suggested that you not eat more than 11 teaspoons a day of moringa powder, which feels like a lot anyway, but to each their own. Maybe you really like the taste of it. But powdered and stored properly, your moringa powder should last at least 2 years, right? So we are going to check back on this later, and then we'll throw it in to the coffee grinder. We're probably going to let it go at a lower temperature all night because I don't want to stay up 4 more hours, but we'll see. So our moringa is done dehydrating, and now it's time to finish processing it. So we are going to powder our moringa today. We're going to take it out of our dehydrator, and we're going to powder it in my Mr. coffee grinder. And to get the leaves off the stems, we're just going to scrape them right off. Super easy. Another fun fact about the moringa tree is it is a nitrogen fixer. Because it has such deep roots, it's pulling all the nitrogen from deep down and pulling it up. You can also use the branches as sort of a mulch. So if you're trimming it back, you can use the branches as a mulch around your other plants to distribute that nitrogen. So really awesome tree on so many levels. Okay, so we've got a few trays of this to do. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing, so we will just skip to the next stage. So we've got our coffee grinder full to the brim, just about, of moringa. So we're going to run it and get this powdered up so we can add more. This only took about 1 1/3 of our trays. So we've got a ways to go. So let's see how well this works. Okay, so it has powdered down to almost empty. So we could scrape that into our jar as it is, or we can just keep adding it in. So that's what I'm going to do, is just keep adding more moringa leaves. A word of caution: when you open the lid, there's going to be a fine green powder, your moringa dust, kind of spreading around. It's good for you, right? So I'm sure it's fine, but just something to be aware of anytime you're powdering anything in a coffee grinder, or probably in anything. I haven't been able to powder anything without making that dust cloud yet. So okay, so I will come back to you when we are done and ready to start putting into our mason jar. So now that we are done grinding up our moringa, we're going to move it to the jar, and then we are going to pressure seal the jar. So we still want to make sure that this stays good until we're ready to use it, so we are going to manually pressure seal the jar. Okay? So we're going to take off our lid. We got a few leaves still stuck in the lid that didn't get powdered. Now we need to give it a second. Whew. Okay. We're just going to breathe in powder. It's okay. It's going to go flying everywhere while we move it to the jar anyway. So this is what we ended up with. We'll see how much that translates to in the jar, but not a whole lot. Once you take all the moisture out of it, you dehydrate it down, grind it into a powder. That big old stack of leaves that took up all 5 trays, 6 trays, 6 trays, does not actually amount to a whole lot of powder. Okay, so to manually pressure can, we're going to put our lid on there. We're going to use one of these. It's a Food Saver brand. And then this is a brake bleeder. It's never been used on brakes. We bought it brand new just for this purpose. You're going to hold the nozzle down there, and you're going to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze until you're at about 20 psi. Usually my hand is over it. Before that, yeah, we're at about 18, and my hand's done. We are almost at 20. We can do it. I don't know if you heard the top there, because it is pressurized. And then we're going to carefully take this off, and our jar is sealed. So this is, I believe, a half pint, and it's about halfway full. That's what all that moringa amounted to. So that is how you process and store moringa powder. Thank you, and please like our page and follow us.